Yo, yo, yo. This is Candy B Knittin. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. And today I be unboxing. So, what I want to show y'all today is Melissa, also known as Knitting the Stash, knitting instructor extraordinaire, YouTuber, wool academic. She was hosting a D-stash on her website, and I picked up a few things. One of them I really, really want to show y'all. So I'm going to kind of work backwards from least interesting to most interesting, or the thing that I want to talk about the most. And this is going to be kind of a reverse unboxing because I already took everything out of the box. I opened it up, made sure everything was there. Everything was very lovingly wrapped in individual tissue papers, so I took all of that off, so hopefully we won't have too much crinkling and rattling. But let's get started, because there's also a thunderstorm brewing outside, and hopefully y'all aren't hearing rumbling and torrential downpour right now. So the first thing she had listed that caught my eye was she just had various knitting notions, is what was the listing was called, and it was free. And I love some free, but you just had to pay for shipping. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna look through stuff, see if I like it, and I'll add this to my cart at the end, and then just pay shipping for everything I order. And the thing that caught my eye to here, and this is just a very general package, you probably recognize this from like an Amazon listing, but I've never used needle stoppers before. And needle stoppers are just like little rubber guys that you put on the end of your needle so your stitches don't fall off. And usually I'm either very, very careful with my knitting and neatly put everything back and scrunch my stitches together, or I use like a hair tie and tie the needles together, because I really couldn't justify buying something like this because it's just like, just plastic. But since she was getting rid of it and it's free, but then it also came with a bunch of stitch markers, some tapestry needles, which you can never have too many tapestry needles. I'm not a big fan of plastic tapestry needles, but there was this Katrinkles metal tapestry needle in there. I think this is I forget what the material is called, but it's kind of has an iridescent sheen to it, and some cute buttons, some cute charms, measuring tape, a bunch of like tags you can sew onto your knits that say little funny things like, oh, this took me forever to make, or don't, it says, what is this? This took forever to make, don't ruin it. Let me see if I can find another cute little saying. And you just sew these in. I probably will just sew them into my own stuff. 100% handmade, non-regiftable, just little cute sayings like that, and a bunch of other gift tags and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cute for $3 plus shipping. The next most interesting thing, the thing that I was just like, might as well toss it in there too. She had a listing of just scrap yarn. I guess she was working on a blanket, and some of it was DK weight and some of it was fingering weight held double. And if you know Melissa, she's not a big superwash fan, and so after she was done with the blanket, she got rid of all of the yarn, and this is about 600 grams of yarn that I snagged for about $40, considering the brands that are in here and the curation by someone like Melissa, who I really respect and like. I figured it was worth the price. These are like intact minis from Hipstring Fibers, and they're super fine merino and baby camel, and I've never knitted with anything that had no camel in it, so I'm pretty excited about these. And the rest of them are partial to almost full skeins of yarn, a lot of nice sock weight yarn. What is this? Like there's Tanis Fiber Arts and Malabrigo, which I've never used. Malabrigo. Oh, yeah, this is Tanis Fiber Arts right here, and a couple of other brands I never used. And y'all know me, I can't resist odds and ends of fingering weight yarn. Like, they're great for accents on a sock. They're great for like I-cord bind offs on shawls, adding just a little bit more interest to it. I just like the look of them because I just think they're so pretty. And I get the opportunity to see dyers and bases that I normally don't get to see because I don't really have Yeah, I have a couple of local yarn stores, but they're not super local to me, and they certainly don't have like every dyer you can imagine. Yeah, nice big size balls like this in there too. And so that was pretty neat. But the coupe de Gracie that I want to share with you is in this basket, which is my own basket from my house. And she was selling her, drum roll please, electric spinning wheel. This is a electric eel wheel nano. I think it's the first generation. And I have decided to name him William December Williams III, after the coolest brother in the galaxy. And she said she used it a few times and just didn't care for it, and so she wants someone else to get some use out of it. And pretty much like new for $100 with everything that came with the original package. So this is all the bobbins it came with. It comes with there's like bearings and what do you call it? All the different tensioning pieces on there. Power cord, of course. There's a control card. All kinds of little measuring tools. And yeah, so I now own an electric spinning wheel. I thought I would just get it, first of all, just to try it out. It seemed kind of superfluous to me because I do own an Asher traditional spinning wheel and I do own drop spindles, and it just seemed like, okay, eventually I'm gonna get an electric wheel, but I'm not like super pressed about it, and it would just be another spinning tool when I have things to spin. But I was thinking to myself, one, the price was right, especially for it to come with all of the accoutrement, and B, my idea in getting this was for plying, because I hear good things about using, a lot of people I follow use their electric wheels specifically for plying, because sometimes plying can be, it's kind of like almost like the weaving in ends of knitting, the weaving in ends equivalent for spinning, because sometimes when I'm initially doing that initial spin with just the raw fiber, and I'm thinking about, oh, I'm gonna do long draw, I'm gonna spin from a fold, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and like that beginning process really just is super exciting. And then by the time I get to plying, it's kind of this like, okay, I just have to go at a constant speed and twist it all together, and it's just a different process for me, and not one that is always enjoyable. And with the electric wheel, one of the benefits of the electric wheel is that the pacing and the rhythm of it is constant, because you just set it and forget it. Like, you don't, when you're treadling at the wheel or you're spinning, you have to trust your body to be putting in the same amount of force and effort into every single motion, and that's just not possible with the human body. And so with machinery, you can get that more consistent spin, especially when it comes to plying, and you want the plies to be balanced. You stop, you put things down, you pick things up, and you can very easily see, oh, I was at a 1 or a 2 or a 3. There's even, like, if you're a super duper beginning spinner, it tells you where your Z is, so you can spin Z twist, then you can switch it. I'm gonna switch it to the off position, and then you can switch it to S. And so it takes a lot of the guesswork out of spinning and plying. You can tell I've already been using it, and so far so good. The first thing I noticed with it, and this is a bobbin I just pulled out some mill ends that I got and have been playing around with it, and so I had like 20 grams of this sparkly mystery fiber. It's probably a merino, if I was a betting person, with some Angelina or Stellina in it. And I just was using this just to get the machine going and just to learn a bit about it. And I'm not a big sparkle yarn person, and so I had nothing to lose except for trying to find the beginning of the bob. There we go. I had like a fuzzy part on there that looked like it could be the beginning. And for the uninitiated, this is what I spun on the Eelwell Nano. This is Not, I mean, this is not apples to apples because this is I believe this is a Cheviot that I spun on my wheel, but these are both short forward draws. This is, all these white bobbins are long draw, so it's definitely not apples to apples, but eventually I'm gonna get this just straight out of the gate, out of the box. And of course they're gonna ply together because they're both singles that are twisted. I'm really great at this. But very long story short. Oh my fudgy, vaba dooba dooba. Ah, okay. There we go. There we go. This purple from the electric wheel is much finer, much smoother than my same short forward draw on my Ashford traditional. And in my research, I found that that's a pretty consistent observation to have. You are able to get that much thinner, that much smoother, that much more consistent with the electric wheel, because one, like I said before, it's a machine, so you're getting like consistency on it, and it can just take so much more tension. Like the more tension you put on your wheel, the harder you have to treadle, right? And so you're able to up the tension just a little bit without sacrificing too much effort on your part. And it's just really super smooth. And so I'm just like, oh, maybe I have other plans for what I can do with this, because I've been really wanting to spin for socks, and I can get pretty delicate and thin on my wheel, but I have to be like super conscious of it. And so if I can spin like this in a single without much effort and like literally just putting the wheel together and going, then imagine what I can do if I'm thinking that much more about spinning a bit thinner and a bit more consistent. So that's that. I like it a lot, and I liked it in a way that I did not, and now I have Stenlina stuck in my Cheviot, and I like it in a way I was not expecting to like it. I thought it might, be a bit boring, but it's actually not, because now I'm kind of free to think about other things than just treadling. And then, when you're using the wheel, you're thinking about treadling, but you're also thinking about moving your hands a certain way. And it's hard to move your hands independently from your feet, right? And so without having to worry about your feet, like I said, my hands are like getting much more consistent, and I'm for the first time really going back and like fixing mistakes as I'm spinning and like pulling it back out. And so that's pretty neat. And so it's just a different experience. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, you should start with a drop spindle because, it's super cheap and, super accessible. Or you should start with a, traditional wooden spinning wheel because you might as well just go all in and, learn all the bits and bots and ins and outs, and you're just going to spend a lot more money down the road if you just don't invest in the thing you want up front. Some people are like, electric wheel, that's a good way to start because, there's, you don't have to think about the treadling or da-da-da-da. But to me, it's like all about like the right tool for the right job. And it's just a different data point and being like, okay, this is what that looks like. Or this is what I might use that for. So yeah, I could definitely see myself. And then that fell apart. That's fine. That was just the end of it. I got to plan out better how I'm going to show my plies. But yeah, it's just different information and depends on what you like. And if you like spinning, if you're anything like me, you want to do all of the things. I will say, and now I have I have some more of this sparkly stuff that I'm, not that excited about, but I can practice on, going on the wheel now and just learning that much more. I will say, I got started. I spun a whole bobbin and maybe like, this is a 2-ounce bobbin. This isn't like a 4-ounce Asher traditional bobbin. But filled this up in a weekend. And now I'm working on the second bobbin. They do sell bigger versions of this. This is the nano, so it's the smaller one. It's got an orifice reducer, so you can do bulkier stuff on here. I imagine it'd probably be hard to get to bulky, and I already have a hard time spinning bulky, so I'm thinking what I'm going to do is actually set up my Asher traditional to do bulky and work on my bulky on the wheel, and now I have another wheel to do other things on. The thing I like about it most, and I have to get used to, is that it has an orifice hook, and it actually has magnets in it that your orifice hook sticks on, and so I keep putting my orifice hook down other places because it's usually tied to my spinning wheel, and I'm like, oh no, it has a thing that goes there. Like I said, it has a dial, so you could probably use tape and mark this, so you can remember where you were spinning and how you had it set up. The plug, the thing I will say about the plug, it's pretty much useless. Like, it's like an AC adapter plug, and you either have to be sitting in the corner by the outlet. Like, this is how short the plug is. Actually, I'll just unplug the whole thing. Yeah, you're not getting far with this, and I bought it so it would be more portable and easy to move. And so at first I had a USB connector connected to it, but I quickly switched to just using, this is a backup battery that they sell for cell phones, and it has a USB plug right here that it plugs into, and that way I can just take the wheel anywhere and just sit the plug beside it, and it actually lights up when it's getting power. It's got these ball bearings and stuff like that. The things I do like about it, super small, super portable. I could see myself like actually traveling and spinning. I technically could put my spinning wheel in the car, but I don't want to put my spinning wheel in a car. But I could, I got this nice basket here, but they certainly sell cases and bags for these guys. They also, there's so many shops out there that sell all different types of 3D printed parts for these things, which are a lot more, a lot less expensive than buying. I think, I want to say one of these bobbins is like $25, and you can get like 3 of these for like $12 or something like that. I don't really need that many. I think 6 bobbins is going to be more than enough, especially when I get into plying and stuff. But you can buy 3D printed bobbins that have all kinds. I was looking at them today, and they have hearts and Spider-Man and whatever you could imagine 3D printed on these guys. They are pretty hard to put together, like the bobbins click into place together, and I put it together and put it on the maiden? I forget what this piece is called. I put it on the shaft several times and realized it didn't fit. And then I realized, I can push this in more. And then it took me like 3 times before I had pushed the bobbin together with a lot of force. So if don't have a lot of upper body strength, you might need help getting that to just click and stay together. Then there's these bearings, which I assume you could just get from the hardware store. The tension on here looks very much like a hair tie. And so it's a lot of pieces, just like a wooden spinning wheel, where like, okay, I could see how I could, rig this or, do my own. I saw some people, created a Scotch tensioning system for theirs, or, there's the motor is down here, so you can switch out the motor and do different things with the motor. It's very customizable, very accessible. The thing I'm not wild about are these orifice hooks, and that might be the first thing I research is not orifice hooks, yarn guides. Because I don't know if y'all can tell, but this is like pretty much thin wire that's just wrapped together. And so this burgundy color you're seeing is the leader I chose for my yarn. And it's just a length of Let Lopey style yarn, because I like a nice woolly grabby yarn as my leader. and it was like snagging on this the whole time, so I couldn't get good uptake with it, and I kind of had to like kind of keep fiddling with it to really get it to take up. And they sell just like round plastic yarn guides that I can clip onto here. I think I could probably just go to the hardware store, like I was saying before, and find some small piece of plastic that can clip onto something this size and use that as a yarn guide. But if not, I might have to just find someone who has one of these 3D. They have, if you go to the Dreaming Robots is the name of the company that makes the electric eel wheel, and they have a whole list of distributors that they refer you to buy accessories. I also have a cousin that has a 3D printer, and so I'm hoping that I can find some files, and maybe he wants to do me a solid and help me. You know, I would pay him. I would definitely pay him, and I would definitely, you know, pay for the files and everything, but, you know, just to use his 3D printer for a little bit, just to make a few little hooks for myself, I think that would be handsome. And, you know, of course, you can get all different color bobbins. These are all, which I like teal and purple, but I'm also kind of getting tired of teal and purple because I've been using a lot of teal and purple, so I might also invest in some different color bobbins, especially if you can assign the colors to different types of projects you're working on or something like that. So that's that. I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's nice to have something I can just do for, like, with my wheel, you know, it's a thing. Like, I have to be like, okay, today I'm going to spin. I must get my wheel ready, you know, like I have to take it apart and oil it from time to time. I have to carry it upstairs or downstairs, depending on where I want to knit. You know, if I'm doing a big spin, I have to think about, like, am I going to do 2 skeins, or am I going to split the braid 3 ways? So it's just nice to have a nice low stakes toy to play with. And even one of my daughters saw it, and she was just like, oh, now you don't have to carry your wheel upstairs and downstairs. You can just pull that out. And so I'm pretty excited about this. Like I said, it also means I can do different stuff with my wheel. And sometimes, you know, I'm working on a spinning project that's not super exciting, kind of like with a knitting project that's not super exciting. And I'm just like, oh, you know, I need a break from that. And so now I have something I can take a break on. And sometimes I need a break from my drop spindle because some of the things on my drop spindle are annoying me. And so it's nice to have another tool in my arsenal. So I've talked about that enough. Really excited about that. The last thing I want to show you that was part of my shopping. This was an in-person shopping experience. I went out with my sister-in-law and we went to lunch, and then we went to like a little tchotchke / vintage thrifty store. And I wasn't necessarily looking for yarny things, but I find yarny things wherever I go. And they had a used book section, and so I picked up, actually I'm going to take the dust jacket off this book, because I think I'm going to toss the dust jacket because it doesn't look that great anymore. I got the Vogue Knitting Ultimate Sock book. And I was a little concerned because I do own like the big, thick Vogue Knitting mega book, and so I was like, oh, I hope this isn't like redundant of that, because some of the chapters in that book are taken from old publications that Vogue used to do, and they combined it all into one book. And so I was kind of looking through it, and I was just like, well, it was $5, which I'm like, okay, $5 for a used book, that's fine. But there are patterns in here, and they're not patterns in the Vogue book. The Vogue book is just instructions, no patterns. And so it's like, okay, there's a couple of good patterns for $5. That's a steal for a bunch of patterns. And if I don't like it, I can just read the book and get the reading experience and then pass it on to the next person. I was very pleased to get home, and I compared the information on socks in my Vogue book to this book, and this book is much more robust than the Vogue book. So if you are super duper into socks and you have the Vogue book already, this book does have additional information. The Vogue book, the thing that's in here, it's funny, the Vogue book, the section on socks starts with like a history of sock knitting that includes like talking about particularly women who would knit socks during like the World War II war effort. That same section is in this book. And then there's a section in the Vogue knitting book about different heel types, and that section is in here too. So those are the only two big overlaps I saw. Some other good information that is in this particular book. So there's like this World War II era photo in there, or poster art. Oh, this is a much better page. And they talk about different types of cast-ons, toe up, bottom down, or cuff down, bottom up. They talk about different types of short rows. They talk about the parts of a sock, the construction of a sock. The thing that I really like about this is that it has the charts in here, which I think the Vogue knitting book has charts in it too. Like in a different section of the book, they just give you sizes of every part of the average human. But the other thing that is in here that I like is there is a chart of popular sock yarns and what their recommended gauge is and how much yarn comes in a ball of it. And I thought that was interesting because I don't see that in a lot of books. And they tell you some yarns are more of a super fine sock yarn. Some of them are more light to fine weight. And so it breaks it down by that. And so like, for instance, some of these are discontinued, of course, but there's like Lang Yarns, Plymouth Yarn Co., Regia sock yarn, and it tells you what the fiber content is, what the gauge is. And I've never seen that in a knitting book where they specifically call out brands of yarn. How to calculate gauge in a sock. There's like a whole section, which I do own a stitch dictionary, but it's interesting to get recommendations of patterns that are specifically for socks, and they tell you what multiple they work on, because some of the stitches in the stitch dictionary, they might be like 56 stitches wide, and that's not going to work for a sock. So there's a lot of there's a lot of stitch patterns in here that work on 10 stitch multiples, 4 stitch multiples, and I thought that was pretty neat. And then there's some color work charts. And then, of course, there's patterns for socks in here. And there's, let me see if I can tell y'all really quickly how many patterns are in here. Is there a table of contents in this book? Oh, here we go. There's knitting traditions around the world, anatomy for a sock, how to design a sock. Okay. And I guess that's why they have the different types of yarn in there. If you're a designer, you can be like, oh, dupe this yarn for that yarn. Basic techniques, the history of sock knitting, stitch patterns for socks, sock knitting around the world, and then the patterns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So not quite 52 weeks of socks, but that's, I can only knit, a lot of people do 12, like a sock a month. I can do maybe 8 or 9 is like my record, and I think that is a good record to hold. So it would take me years to knit all of those. Then abbreviations, some techniques, and then a workbook. Oh yeah, there's a worksheet. I guess you could photocopy this, and if you're designing socks, you take your measurements. This pair of socks is for such and such. The yarn you use, the stitch pattern, where you got the stitch pattern from, the gauge you got, all the notes. And so that's cute. I like this for just me. Like, I'll put all of my stuff in there so I can keep my measurements somewhere. But yeah, so that's that. And so for $5, I'm pretty happy with this. And if I don't end up using the patterns in it, it looks like it's going to be a good read too, because I like to read as well. Before there was yarn in my life, there were books, and so there's lots of books in my house. And so I'm actually trying to be very thoughtful about specifically bringing knitting books into the house, because it could get out of hand. But I think this is going to be a keeper, and it's nice and hard packed too. Last but certainly not least, I wanted to do a little shouty shout out, because we were talking about Melissa at Knitting the Stash, and I have gotten like requests from time to time. People ask me for like recommendations of other YouTubers I watch, which I think is like super flattering, because I'm just like, how are you watching me? And there are so many like talented people out there doing it much more interesting things than I am. But then I got a comment on one of my videos, a person by the name of Gina. She has a channel called Knits in Color, but I'm gonna actually link her below so I get the name perfectly correct. So you can click on it and go to her videos. She also is She Knits in Color on Instagram, and she commented on my video and said that she now wants to start a YouTube channel because she saw my YouTube channel, and she was just like, oh, you use a lot of colors, and there's not a lot of YouTubers using a lot of color. And her whole thing is she knits in color. And so I just wanted to shout her out, and encourage y'all, if there's other people y'all are watching that aren't necessarily like the big names, or people who, don't look like the big names, aren't knitting the big patterns, definitely give them a shout out below in the comments. Definitely go check out Gina. She's got like 3 episodes up already, and they're really good. They're just, if you like this, you'll like Gina. She just sits in front of the camera, chats about what she's working on, great colors, a lot of really accessible, affordable yarns she uses, and let's just, have a good time with it. Knit the things that you want. And if you're out there and you're like, oh, maybe I should make videos, or maybe I should start an Instagram, there's someone out there that's waiting for you to hear what you have to say and to hear what you have to share in your way. There's people that I watched that I was just like, oh, thank God there's someone that thinks that. And if they had never made that video, I would still kind of feel very isolated. And so don't hesitate to get out there and like share what you have to say. But other than that, you can find me on Instagram at Rulude. Obviously here I'm candibknittin. You can find me at candibknittin@gmail.com, candibknittin on the Ko-fi. Till the next time, peace.